We're very excited to share this information with you about what makes Napa Valley one of the best winemaking regions in the world. So no matter what your background or where you come from, hopefully this presentation will leave you with a better appreciation of Napa Valley as a wine producing region and some new insights into how wines in Napa Valley are made, right? Okay. So let's look at what the brand promise is. What does Napa Valley really offer? Napa Valley stands for wines of the highest quality, cultivated with excellence in one of the world's most extraordinary places. Over the course of this presentation, we'll dive into understanding the specific geography, soils, climate, technology, history, environmental and social sustainability of the Napa Valley. Let's first understand from the very basics. What does the word terroir mean? So generally we define terroir as a combination, as the natural environment in which a particular wine is produced, and it combines factors such as soil, topography, and climate. Now, for the purpose of this presentation, I'd like to propose that we also add a fourth element, which is people, because at the end of the day, people make such a huge difference to how wines get made, right? A human being makes so many decisions and has a stylistic vision of how he wants to make his wines, his or her wines. So I like to always add a fourth element beyond soil, topography, and climate, which is people. And there, somewhere between all of these, lies Napa Valley's unique terroir. And there is the intersection of Napa Valley's culture of quality winemaking and the physical environment, when all put together, is what makes Napa Valley the most unique wine producing region in the world. Let's have a look at where Napa Valley is situated. So when you look at Napa Valley, one thing to understand is it's in a really, really important location. If you see, it is coastal, it's close to the coast, but it's not really right at the coast. It's not so inward where it's too hot or becomes part of the central coast, or Central Valley rather, but it is not absolutely at the very edge either. And this climate is what makes Napa Valley neither too hot nor too cold, and this enables to grow quality wine grapes. The valley is bordered between two mountain ranges, and it is also located about an hour from San Francisco. So incredibly accessible. If you take a flight onto San Francisco, you can hop into a car, and within an hour, you would be at the Napa Valley. It's precisely this location that gives Napa Valley its unique mix of attributes and allows the vintners of Napa Valley to produce world-class wines. Now, Napa Valley, interestingly, was the first AVA as I refer to as the American Viticultural Areas. So that is what they call the legally defined area within Napa Valley. And Napa Valley was among the first AVAs to be established in California in 1981. What is an AVA? It's a geographically, legally defined grape growing area that produces or possesses distinguishable characteristics, very unique, particular characteristics, including a certain type of climate, a certain type of terroir, terrain, topography, soil, and mixed with some cultural and historical distinction. All of these combinations are unique to every place in the world, and particularly for Napa Valley, they are unique, so unique, which we will discover now over the next few slides. They're so unique that it makes Napa Valley among the most distinguishable and most iconic regions in the world. Now, since 1981, to date, there are 16 AVAs that have been recognized within the Napa Valley AVA as a whole. Now, the sheer number of these AVAs, each with their own unique and definable attributes, speaks to the diversity of terroir that lies within the larger Napa Valley AVA's terroir, right? There's so much going on within a small region. AVAs, you may say, oh, is this the same as appellations that we know of from the European countries? It's slightly different. European Union and its appellations are more, I would say, more regulated. They have more rules. AVAs are in fact strict geographical designations. So in terms of geographical boundaries, they're extremely well defined. However, they do not limit creativity, freedom of style, freedom of experimentation, and being able for a vintner to be able to show his own distinctive style of winemaking. So there's a lot of flexibility on the type of grapes that are grown, the viticulture and winemaking methods that a vintner may adopt, or the kind of yields that he may want to sort of, grow the crop with. So there's a lot of freedom for creativity and experimentation and showcasing one's own style, unique style. So that is, I suppose, what makes an AVA differ from a European Union appellation. And when you see an AVA mentioned on the label of a wine, you should know that almost 85% of the grapes that go into the making of that wine come from that specific AVA, still allowing about 15% sort of flexibility for the wine grapes to come from regions other than the AVA mentioned on the label. Now, you may think, we all know of Napa Valley. We constantly think of Napa Valley as such an important region. Who doesn't know of Napa Valley? I remember when we did our consumer research study after Nasik, which is an important wine producing region in India. And it's only natural that every Indian would know that India produces wines in Nasik. The second most recognizable region in the world among Indian wine consumers was Napa Valley. When we asked people who else in the world makes wines, after Nasik, it was Napa Valley that featured top. So Napa is such a recognizable, easy to recall sort of a name. One might think Napa Valley is so big, but in fact, it's quite a small region. Napa Valley produces only 4% of the entire California's annual grape harvest. Napa Valley has close to 46,000 acres, which is about 1/6 of the size of Bordeaux's planted acreage, right? So in terms of vines under plant, it's only 1/6 the size of Bordeaux. And the valley itself is about 30 miles long and 5 miles wide, a little bit like Mumbai, actually. Much like, it's long and it's kind of narrow, right? The valley, therefore, is very close to the San Pablo Bay and the Pacific Ocean. And that is what makes the terroir of Napa Valley so unique. But let me ask you a question, just out of curiosity. What percentage of the world's wines do you think Napa Valley produces? Any guesses? How much do you think, in percentage terms, does Napa Valley produce as a percentage of the global production? You will be surprised to know Napa Valley produces merely 0.4% of the world's wines. This is really very little. It's less than 1%, right? So for as less as the production is, Napa Valley enjoys a really stellar reputation in the world of wines. Only 9% of the total area in Napa Valley is planted to grape wines. And most of the producers of Napa Valley are really small scale producers. I wouldn't say small scale, but they're really family owned, really sort of boutique sort of wineries. Nearly 80% of Napa Valley vintners, which are 550 member wineries, which represent an overwhelming majority of wineries and wine production in Napa Valley. And these collectively individually make less than 10,000 cases of wine in a year. So you can, just like some of the top bracket wines of Bordeaux, for example, that make no more than 15,000 cases, 20,000 cases max. A large percentage of Napa Valley producers produce no more than 10,000 cases of wine a year. So really that makes wine that much more desirable. There's a massive global demand for these wines. People are constantly looking to get their hands on these wonderful wines. And it kind of keeps mystique sort of going, right? Okay, what does this slide show us? 95% of all Napa Valley wineries, whether they are members of the Napa Valley Vintners, NVV, the association, which we will talk about a bit later, or they are non-member, most of them are family-owned and operated. Why is this important in the world of wines? Because I think what we're trying to establish is that these are not commercial wineries. These are not large-scale wineries where there is not much thought to quality, or the production is very commercial. It's very sort of templatized. Here you are dealing with vintners who are very passionate about quality, have a very specific vision of what they are trying to make, and they really are trying to live up the dream of creating something unique, something world-class to offer you as consumers. So that is what makes it very unique. Now, although Napa Valley is so small and controls only 0.4% of the global production of wine, the impact of Napa Valley is really huge. In spite of its small size, the Napa Valley wine industry has a big presence in the local community. There's a lot that it gives back, and it creates nearly 43,000 jobs in Napa County. It has an annual local economic impact of over $9.4 billion. And that is a lot of money, right? I mean, when I compare it to some of the industries in other countries, this is a big impact that Napa Valley has on the overall global economy, but also within Americas. Now, let's look at what the grape varieties are that thrive here. On your slide, you can see so many different varieties, and you might say, well, some of these are early ripening, some of these are late ripening, some of these varieties thrive in cooler climates, some of these thrive in much warmer climates, and that's the beauty. The beauty is that Napa Valley offers such diverse growing conditions that dozens of varieties flourish in Napa Valley. The conditions here are well suited both to cool climate varieties such as Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, as well as robust red grape varieties such as Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Cabernet Franc, and so on. However, the region's top 6 varieties are, in this order, Cabernet Sauvignon, Chardonnay, Merlot, Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Noir, and Zinfandel. Let's look at Cabernet Sauvignon. Why are we looking at this closely? Because Cabernet Sauvignon is king, and majority of Napa Valley winemakers produce it. We all, when we think of Napa Valley, we think of Cabernet Sauvignon, right? So nearly 90% of all Napa Valley vintner members make Cabernet Sauvignon, or at least a Cabernet-based blend. It accounts for 15% of California's wine grape harvest, and it represents 47% of Napa Valley's overall grape harvest, right? So Cabernet Sauvignon is 50% of Napa's bearing acreage. Now, Napa Valley Cabernet Sauvignon is not cheap to produce. It is an expensive grape variety to produce. You can produce many other grape varieties for half or even less than half the price, but the kind of prices that farmers fetch for the Napa Valley Cabernet Sauvignon can sometimes, or can be, as high as 6.6 times of the statewide average. So that in itself shows why Napa Valley Cabernet Sauvignon is always pegged at the absolute premium end of the market. And all of this is reflected not just in the prices of the wines or prices of the grapes, but also the quality in the glass, right? Let's take a closer look at the soils that are in Napa Valley and what sort of soils. Now, we don't want to try and get too technical or too academic, but understanding the geology of Napa Valley is important, and it is the real key to understanding how vines grow. Vines grow, after all, in soil, and soil is a very important component of the terroir. There's been a lot of history of rainfall that has eroded mountains, hillsides. All of this wash sediment has come and sort of got deposited on the valley floor. And over time, there's been vegetation that has grown, that has died. It's kind of gone back into the soil. It's created organic matter. And all of this has led to creating a soil heritage that is rich, it is varied, it provides just the right fodder that you need to and created countless combinations of different kinds of soils in which the roots can go deep into and sort of create crops that are amazing. But largely speaking, there are 3 distinct soil types that you find in Napa Valley, and they are mountain, alluvial, and fluvial. In a nutshell, each of these possess a unique set, or these together create a unique set of characteristics which make each wine style unique in themselves. If you see, generally, if you look at how colorful this slide looks, you will see that there is so much soil diversity in Napa Valley. There is this tiny wine growing region that you see in front of you, and yet there's so many different soil types. There are 33 soil series, and almost 50% of the world's soil orders all exist within Napa Valley. So Napa Valley is a little bit of the entire world packed into this little area. Scientifically speaking, there are 12 different kinds of soil types that have been recognized as good quality for wine growing. 6 out of those 12 soil types actually exist in the Napa Valley region. And there are 100 kinds of different soil variations where, there are all kinds of combinations. All of these collectively create grapes or grow grapes that are incredibly unique, that are structured, that are complex, and fruit forward. So what we're looking for, or what these soils enable, is making of wines that are concentrated. They really speak of the typicity of the grape that goes into production of these wines, and they're fruit forward. And we all know of Napa Valley as incredibly fruit forward kind of wines, but with a lot of elegance to it. The second aspect of terroir, which we talk about after soil, is in fact climate. We all know that climate has a tremendous effect on the flavor of the grapes. Now, within Napa Valley, you might think, is it too hot? Is it too cold? What makes the Napa Valley climate very unique is that it enjoys a Mediterranean climate. Mediterranean climate means it never rains during the growing season. This is very important because if it rains, it can cause a lot of damage to the crop. It can compromise the quality of the crop. So because it's a dry growing season, it enables the grapes to flourish beautifully, without any sort of less disease pressure, and it allows them to develop really good concentrated flavors. We also have a lot of diurnal temperature variations between day and night. So even in some regions of Napa Valley, or some AVAs of Napa Valley, which may be very hot and may sometimes during the summer growing months reach up to 37 or 38 degrees Celsius, but the nights invariably are very cool, and there is a very sharp drop between the daytime temperature and the nighttime temperature, what we refer to commonly as the diurnal temperature variation. And this really allows the grapes to not scorch or to over-ripen or to ripen too quickly. What it allows them to do is to retain their freshness, their vivacity, develop flavors slowly, meaningfully, in a way that leads to good phenolic sort of ripeness, and as well as physiological ripeness. So that is something very unique. You also, because of its proximity to the Pacific Ocean, you also get a lot of fog that creeps in from the cold San Pablo Bay. And this sort of has a lovely moderating effect on the climate. I should have probably moved to the next slide to show you all this, because we've been talking about all of this. But in general, it has this, I wanted to show you the next slide actually, which shows you the fog that comes into Napa Valley. And because of its unique position in the coastal ranges, the marine fog that comes in from the San Pablo Bay has a lovely moderating effect on the Napa Valley and ensures that it doesn't get too hot, not too cold, and not too much humidity. You don't want too much humidity because again, that increases the disease pressure. It keeps the climate really, really world-class and just how you want it to be. The Mediterranean climate is something that is enjoyed by very few regions around the world, and it is commonly believed that it is this kind of climate that is needed to produce wines of world-class quality. Napa Valley enjoys the same climate, or somewhat the same climate, that is enjoyed by the top Bordeaux sort of wine, chateaus. And so that is as another reason that allows Napa Valley to produce wines that compete with some of the best in the world. Right, we've talked about the Mediterranean climate. And basically, rainfall primarily happens only over the winter when the vines are dormant. The vines are trying to sort of take in as much as they can to keep it, keep preserving what they need to go through the entire growing season thereafter. Let's take a quick look at how vineyard and winery practices also influence how Napa Valley's diverse soils and climate help create high quality wines. Now, when you're planting or farming a vineyard, a grower is able to use both time-tested farming methods and the latest technology which is available through the UC Davis and other research universities. Growers in Napa Valley can either use the latest rootstock or some of the latest clonal selections to match the attributes of a particular vine to a specific vineyard. The vast majority of the vineyards in Napa Valley are hand farmed, hand harvested. So it allows for a lot of personal intervention and attention to be given to every wine. Basically, the bottom line is great combination of amazing, great soils, the ideal climate, and a farmer's attention to detail in the vineyard is what allows Napa Valley to produce grapes of incredibly high quality, tailored to the environment of the vineyard site and matching the grape variety in question. To continuously help them improve on grape growing and winemaking, Napa Valley growers and winemakers harness the latest technology in the vineyard and the winery. It allows vineyard managers to constantly think of their farming practices, keep adapting themselves, draw upon whatever is latest in the world, and be able to implement it with great speed, great efficacy, just to ensure that they remain on top of all the cutting edge changes that are happening around the world, most of these generally emanating from Napa Valley itself and then being emulated all around the world. What helps Napa Valley winemakers create such unique and high quality wines? It's often said, right, that wine is made in the vineyard. So what is the role of winemaking here? Well, it really is the job of the winemaker to transform the high quality fruit into world-class wines. There's a hell of a lot of decisions that a winemaker has to make at the winery level to ensure that the integrity and the quality of the grapes that have come out of the vineyards is maintained, and if anything has to be further enhanced into something wonderful in a way that it expresses not just the winemaker's vision or philosophy or how he wants that style to evolve, but also addresses consumer taste, isn't it? It creates a style that consumers enjoy and refer all around the world. So let's explore a few things that the winemakers do at the winery to ensure great quality comes out. Winemakers in Napa Valley, they pay attention to every small detail of wine production to ensure that they are in control of the process every part of the day. Attention to detail is such an important thing because when you're making wine, it can be one small thing that you overlook and you could virtually spoil all the wine overnight. So attention to detail is so important. Use of the latest technology, which is available indigenously within, Napa Valley itself, but constant evaluation of how that wine is evolving. What are the changes that need to take place? How do we need to adapt? And lots of creativity, lots of experimentations, lots of trial and errors, trying different blends, trying vines made from that are from different parcels of vineyards, just trying different sort of assemblage or playing with clonal selections or just trying a whole lot of other things which Napa Valley is able to do because the AVAs, whilst they are legally defined geographical areas, as I mentioned, they're not so strict that they would not allow that degree of experimentation and fun, for that matter, for the winemaker to have in order to create something that is never been tried before, I suppose. But more importantly, the last word, I love the word collaboration. Teamwork is so important. Every time I've traveled to Napa Valley, I've seen this great camaraderie between all winemakers. Yes, of course, there's some amount of competition, which is natural, but it's healthy competition. It's not where somebody is wishing ill on someone else. The entire, the American dream is at full play in Napa Valley, and every winemaker there is really so deeply passionate about creating a wine that will make Napa Valley as a whole look better. So yes, everybody wants to do better individually, but there's such a great sense of pride about Napa Valley as a region that this whole thing about collaborating and making, doing Napa Valley proud is such an important element that I've personally witnessed on my trips to Napa Valley. And now that we've been through the complex story of winemaking in Napa Valley, let me also quickly talk about what is the Napa Valley Vintners and what is it that we're doing today. I won't go into too many details, but Napa Valley Vintners is an association that is here to promote, protect, and enhance the Napa Valley. Those are the three key words. They exist. There are wineries in Napa Valley that are members of the Napa Valley Vintners mission, and their mission being to overall promote Napa Valley all around the world, protect them, and enhance the reputation and the quality of the wines of Napa Valley. The work of the Napa Valley Vintners falls into three broad categories, therefore. It is marketing and promoting the AVAs of Napa Valley, working to protect and enhance the region. So you can't really use the word Napa on something else. It's legally protected as a word and as a term. And overall, creating and fostering a sense of collaboration and community within the wine community. So whether you are on the road or at home, members of the Napa Valley Vintners are working together to promote Napa Valley through a variety of programs that they do inbound within their own home country, but also in the international markets, including organizing a lot of charitable, benevolent sort of activities that promote the Napa Valley as a whole. This picture you see is landscape of the valley, and the second category of NVV's work also involves to protect the Napa Valley, its name, its industry, its land, its people, all of that. And so it's great. And lastly, about fostering collaboration, which I have already talked about. I'm really, really very excited that we are collaborating with Napa Valley Vintners on this wonderful seminar today, where we are sharing with you all this educational information about Napa Valley as a region. And I thank Napa Valley Vintners for having given us this opportunity to not just share a little bit about Napa Valley with you or give you a glimpse into Napa Valley, but also what is about to follow is a wonderful chat we're going to have with three incredibly iconic wine producers of Napa Valley who will give us their direct insights into their history and all of that. But before that, I want to summarize this presentation through the top 5 takeaways. Napa Valley is an extraordinary place, a place that makes wines that are unique and unlike any other in the world in terms of prestige and quality and recognition. They sit right at the top of the pyramid of the world of wines, so there is no denying that. And all of this is enabled, of course, through a lot of attention to detail, lots of quality winemaking, but also through a massive culture of collaboration, a sense of community, a sense of pride. Napa Valley is a thriving industry. We've seen that even through some of the recent odds that they have been through, whatever adversities that climate change and all other things are thrown at them, they seem to emerge even stronger, better, and more amazing. So our respect for Napa Valley continues to go up, and I think the demand for Napa Valley continues to go up. I know there isn't enough Napa Valley in India, that I can say with a great deal of certainty. Congratulations to the NBV and all the winemakers of Napa Valley that have created a history and a legacy of cultivating extreme excellence. And I guess with that, I would like to urge you all to visit the napavintners.com website, or also follow them on these social media handles, where you can continue to learn more about Napa Valley, its AVAs, its terroir, its climate, soils, winemaking, and its people, most importantly.